Good morning. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Marilyn Orr, President of the club, and we are thrilled to have you join us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV, as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel and Facebook. Our club meets weekly using this digital platform, Zoom. When we meet in person, it's at Laurel Lake Retirement Community for breakfast. We hope to get back to that soon. We meet most Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. So come out to join us for a meeting. We would love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact we are having on our local community and the world, please visit our website, rotaryhudson.org. So enjoy this meeting today and help us share the message that Rotary opens doors of opportunity.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests, and welcome to all the guests. We've got a good crowd this morning. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the Rotary Club of Hudson. Our invocation this morning is by Phil Tobin.
Heavenly Father, an Irish prayer. As each of us give our own thanks according to our own personal beliefs, let us dwell on some thoughts that bind us together as Rotarians. You blessed us with friends and laughter and fun, with rain that is soft as light from the sun. You blessed us with stars to brighten each night. You've given us help to know wrong from right. You've given us so much, please, Lord. Give us too a heart that is always grateful to you. Heavenly Father, bless this food to our liking and us to your service. In your name we ask it. Amen.
Thank you, Phil. And to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Tom Tobin.
Hey, if you'll all join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of, and the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Tom. And our president, Pat Shearer.
Thank you very much, Ron. Our opening quote for our meeting today. Local self-government is the lifeblood of liberty, John Motley. We've been asked by the German Heritage Society if we would be interested in potentially doing our Braten hot dog stand during the Crindle market right before Christmas. And so if anybody is interested in potentially chairing that project for us, so that might be a potential fundraiser for us in this fall. September 25th, I received notification from the district and also through Leadership Akron that a large group of volunteers have backed out of being at the starting line for the Akron Marathon. So they are in desperate need of some volunteers for that morning. The good part is it's first thing in the morning, so it's at the starting line. If anybody is interested in potentially volunteering as a Rotarian for that project, please see me after the meeting. So October 24th is International Polio Eradication Day. So in honor of the 24th, we're going to have another Pints for Polio Day on October 20th. This time we will be at the Brew Kettle, and it also will be from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. And Brew Kettle has offered to donate $1 for every pint that we consume to go to the Polio Plus campaign. We have a number of guests with us this evening or this morning. Our first is our district governor, Larry Lemon, and Larry's got a couple a message for us this morning? If you want to, you can go to the mic right there. Morning. Thank you for having me here today. One, we want to make a small announcement about the Asian Gala. We held at Windows on class in November 11th. This year, we are celebrating our clubs and their contributions to the foundation, but also the service that they've done through the giving to the foundation. So, like clubs there, we'll be doing a couple special things, special awards, which our foundation chair, Jim Wesco, is reached out to our president on. We are not doing any kind of decided that we just want to have more information. It's going to be coming out during the planning process. Thank you very much, Larry. And then John from the Clock Tower Club would like to promote their bourbon event again. John.
The Clock Tower Rotary is holding a bourbon tasting event on October the 13th. And there are flyers that are sitting right next to the name tags out there, and ask that you take one. And there's a, as they say, a QR code that if you hit that with your phone, it'll take you right to the sign up sheet. And we'd like to see as many people as can. It's going to be out at someplace called Camp Manitowoc.
I have no idea where that is, John.
And we're expecting to have a great event on that, and look forward to seeing all of you out there. Okay.
Thank you very much, John. And with that, we will turn the floor over to David Basil for starting of our debate.
Thank you, President Pat. And good morning to my fellow Rotarians and to all of our guests. Thank you for being here. I am Dave Basil. It's my pleasure this morning to continue with the presentation of candidates who will appear on the ballot in the election this November. Today, we continue to hear from candidates for Hudson City Council. This year, all 3 at-large seats on the 7-member Hudson City Council will be chosen. There are 8 candidates for those 3 seats. The 3 candidates receiving the most votes will assume office at the first council meeting in December. Recognizing the trend over the past couple of elections toward early voting, we are holding these sessions 1 month earlier this year than in years past. As with past meetings, I will briefly introduce each candidate, who will then have 5 minutes to discuss their qualifications and share their views on the issues. Following the candidates' prepared remarks, there will be an opportunity for questions from members and guests. Those present in the room should use the central mic in the center aisle, and please identify yourself prior to posing your question. Those joining via Zoom should use the chat feature, and your question will be read to the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question. So in order to facilitate as many questions as possible, we ask that you keep your questions short, direct, and to the point. Please avoid long preambles and statements prior to posing your question. We will circle back for follow-up questions if time allows and after everyone has had an opportunity to pose their question. We expect to take the last question at roughly 8:20 or so. And out of respect, we would ask that everyone hold their applause and not applaud for individual comments or responses. With that, we will begin with the introductions. The first candidate is Chris Banweg. Chris was born in Akron and grew up in Canal Fulton, Ohio. He moved to the Chicago area with his family just before beginning high school. He graduated from the University of Illinois and was commissioned as a Marine officer in May of 2000. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, an MBA, and a Master's in Strategic Studies with an area of concentration in cyberspace operations. Upon commissioning in the Marine Corps, Chris first served as a finance officer at Marine Corps Base Quantico in the Anti-Terrorism Reaction Force. In 2004, he moved to the corporate world where he held various roles in operations, business development, human resources, and program management with global Fortune 150 companies. He also joined the Marine Reserve in 2004 and has served in various roles in the reserve, including a deployment in Afghanistan. Chris is currently a senior program manager with Goodyear Tire and Rubber, managing global projects and transformations in his civilian career, and is currently assigned to the Marine Reserve as a strategic plans officer. Chris has lived in Hudson for 10 years with his wife, Leslie, and their 3 children, all of whom attend the Hudson City Schools. Please join me in giving a Rotary welcome to Chris Banweg.
A lot of stuff to put in your hands. So I'll open by saying, good morning, Rotarians and guests, and thank you for the opportunity, for offering me this opportunity to share about myself with you and more broadly with the community. You've heard my bio, and you know that I am husband to the lovely Leslie and father to 3 children who attend Hudson schools. I've also been a resident of Hudson for 10 years, which is not long compared to many of you, but it has been enough time for me to develop a deep appreciation for our community. Now, some of you know me better than others. In the business world, you've heard that I work in Fortune 150 companies in numerous roles until I left active duty and since I left active duty in the Marine Corps in 2005. Most recently, I've worked in major project management and global transformations, coordinating a diverse group of people and interests to deliver results for the organization. I've also been a Marine officer for over 20 years, first as a finance officer and then joining the reserve as a civil affairs officer. As a civil affairs officer, I've deployed to regions divided by race, religion, and socioeconomic disparity multiple times, always with a focus on building or supporting a government in transition, focused on civil governance, infrastructure, and economics. My goal has been to reinforce their stability and emphasize the government's relationship and connection to the people they serve. As I've met residents in Hudson, I've been asked many times why I decided to run for Hudson City Council. And very often with the question, why would you put yourself through this? Now, it has been a lot to consider, and it was a tough decision to make. But I believe that it's a crucial question to ask those who would represent you in a decision-making position. For me, I believe it is necessary for each of us to determine how we can best serve our community to keep it strong and vibrant. At this time in my life, I believe that this is my best way to contribute. I believe, apologies, and while I prefer to serve in less public ways, in our current climate, I feel that civility A level-headed approach and mature leadership can contribute to unifying the community and making progress at the municipal level. So like the other candidates, I bring a unique set of skills and experiences that I believe could benefit Hudson. Most of my military career has been working behind the scenes in other governments to bring peace and stability to chaotic places. I'm offering this experience to the community as a way that I can serve. And why? Because I love this community. I love the people, and I love our nation. I believe that strong communities make for a strong country. I've benefited from this community in particular, and I'd like to pay that forward. Now, my approach is to focus on transparent government that represents the interests of the residents, and that goes to strong communication and listening. And that may sound cliche, but I believe it is fundamental for public leaders. I believe it is fundamental for public leaders to have the broad trust of those they represent. I believe in a fiscally conservative approach and limited government. And I want to preserve the qualities of Hudson to make it desirable. All right, let me pause. I want to preserve the qualities of Hudson that make it so desirable while we evolve to meet our emerging community needs. Again, I walked the community for weeks and have met hundreds of residents and neighbors. There are many interests and concerns in our city, but there are some that have consistently risen to the top. Thank you. What I found is a distinct need to revise the comprehensive development plan to balance neighborhood investment considerations with larger city investments. Coincidentally, the review and revision is already scheduled for this coming year. As part of this, we must put in place a clear plan for phase 2 that is based on density acceptable to the community and provides options for empty nester housing. I saw a lot of promise in the plan that was proposed earlier. Additionally, options for YDC should be developed to see where we have broad community support. We have some real challenges ahead of us in the next 4 years. I'm confident that many of the things that arise we have not seen yet, and that I'm professionally prepared to address them. Finally, in the election process, I understand clearly that I won't be supported by all residents, but you can know that if elected, I will represent all residents. I offer a civil approach, professional skills, and mature leadership to the residents of Hudson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we will hear from Nicole Kowalski. Nicole and her husband Ross have lived in Hudson since 2014. Nicole was elected as an at-large member of Hudson City Council in the 2020 special election to fill a partial unexpired term following the resignation of a member of council. She's now seeking a full 4-year term as an at-large member of City Council. Nicole is an alumna of Kent State University and owns her own marketing and communications firm, in addition to working as an adjunct professor at Cuyahoga County Community College in the Creative Arts Division. Before her election to City Council, Nicole served on the Hudson Environmental Awareness Committee, which advises City Council on issues related to the local environment, as well as trash and recycling services. Nicole also serves as a volunteer board member for Hudson Community First, is a member of the Hudson Rotary Club, this club, and is a member of Leadership Hudson's class of 2020. In addition to her activities in Hudson, Nicole volunteers as a big sister with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Cleveland, and in 2019 was named one of 15 recipients of the YWCA Greater Cleveland's Distinguished Young Woman Award. Nicole and Ross are members of St. Mary Parish in Hudson and have a daughter, Eleanor. Please join me in giving a Rotary welcome to Nicole Kowalski.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Rotary, for hosting us. I really appreciate you doing this for the community so that the community can learn more about all of the candidates. Last year, due to your support, I was elected to serve our community as an at-large member of Hudson City Council. I am thankful and honored still. Since being sworn in, I have worked with my colleagues on council to address several important issues. Together, we have approved a sidewalks and trails plan that is bringing more connectivity to Hudson, found creative solutions to support our businesses during COVID, address pedestrian safety concerns, and approved plans to make significant improvements to our roads and infrastructure. But more importantly, I have wasted no time getting to work for you on the priorities you requested, and I have also not been afraid to introduce some initiatives of my own. In the coming months, Council will be continuing our work on several important issues. One issue that our community has been working towards a resolution on is what to do with the plot of land that has come to be known as Phase 2. As many of you are aware, Fairmount Properties, who completed the First and Main project, has approached the city with a plan which would bring an expanded Heinens to our downtown, as well as more residential into this area. This project will require experienced leadership to complete. We are also in the midst of revising legislation we passed, which regulates short-term rentals, reviewing updates to our land development code, looking towards the implementation of a pedestrian safety study, implementing adaptive signal technology to improve traffic in town, adopting our 2022 budget, and more. However, as you all know, the unexpired term to which I was elected ends this year. I am the only incumbent seeking re-election, and the time I have spent on council has given me the experience needed to continue to lead and move the city forward. Looking towards our future, my vision for our community is simple. Whether it is 1 year from now or 20, balancing the inevitable growth of our city with the immediate needs of the community is and should remain the #1 priority. As a council member, I have maintained a nonpartisan mindset and worked hard for the good of our community. Hudson is a wonderful, well-run city, and it can be easy to forget the impact that local officials have on your day-to-day life. That is why turning out to vote is so important. The proven strong leadership that has made our city the envy of other municipalities could be in jeopardy if Hudson does not go to the polls to cast their vote and make their voice heard this November. I need your continued support and your vote to be reelected. In 2020, we saw a high voter turnout because of the presidential election. This year, there are no national, statewide, or county races on the ballot to drive people to the polls. Many people may think their vote won't make a difference in non-presidential years, but every single vote will matter in this city council race. When I think about Hudson, the town my husband Ross and I have chosen as our home to raise our daughter Eleanor in, I know deep down that I can have a positive impact. I have loved every single minute so far of serving you all on council. Hudson is our home, and I am passionate about the impact I know I can continue to have in this role if elected to a 4-year term. My work is not yet done, and I hope to earn the honor of representing you on council once again. I'm humbly asking for your vote on November 2nd or before, should you wish to cast your vote early. Please visit kowalski4hudson.com to read more about me, my qualifications, and blogs I frequently write addressing important issues and recapping city council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Nikki. Are there questions from those with us on the floor? Yes, Ron.
Ron Strobel. You mentioned the Phase 2, Nicole. I have questions for both of you. The previous proposal for Phase 2 was turned down by a slight majority vote of the public, which people that were for it liked the fact that it was most of it was first floor living. It was relatively nicely laid out, but it was turned down. The proposal for Fairmont Properties has many, well, 77 three-story townhomes proposed. It has access to those townhomes, 56 of them from Owen Brown Street. The Testa proposal had none. And there's been no public comment. It took about 5 years to get the last one through. This one appears to be moving in the next 3 months. Your comments, please.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I have a lot of thoughts on phase 2, and I think that what is really important for us all to remember is this is a very preliminary plan. There's plenty of time for citizen input. In fact, we do have an open house scheduled for this Wednesday, the 29th at 7:00 p.m. It was just announced yesterday, I'm sorry, next Wednesday. So that will be at City Hall, and I invite everyone to come and make your voice and your thoughts heard. We will continue to do other open houses on council, and there will also be a website in which citizens can give their input online, submit their input. So the empty nester housing is an issue that I hear literally every day. It is a need in Hudson that is not being met, and the demand is there. So I think that it makes a lot of sense for this plan to include that. So I think that as we work towards finalizing this plan and deciding whether or not it's right for the community, that will be something that all of us will be looking at and making sure is included. The plan overall, I've heard from a lot of constituents already that they feel like it's a lot closer to being right for our community than the last one was. I am receiving more support for it. So I think that's a positive, that we seem to be more in agreement. And while it doesn't appear that it will be able to go to a vote like it did last time, I feel confident that we will get a lot of citizen input.
Yeah, I think I've heard many of the same things. I will say, walking door to door and talking to the members of the community, there is a distinct interest in empty nester housing. And as Nicole said, this is an initial plan. I think what's most important to look at in the proposal for phase 2 and then the adoption of a plan is that we do honor the residents, and to your question, the voice of the residents. As we get towards more detail, I believe it's important to allow enough time that we have that broad base of support before we make what's essentially a lifelong commitment to development. Now, there's been a lot of work done. There's been a lot of feedback received already. So incorporating that has brought us to where we are today, where the plan seems more aligned. Now, to the question of 3-story versus 1-story, I'd like to see those details in the plan so that we know what we're actually deciding on. Lower density, very important to many people, and a good plan for implementation, also important. But key, I think, is the communication with the public, giving enough time for people to respond and engage, and then listening to the feedback. If it's not the right plan, or if it's not the right time, we should be delaying it so that we have that broad base of support from the community.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the floor? Yes, Patricia.
Hi, I'm Patricia Getz. Could you please tell us your view on the velocity broadband?
Yes. So again, I've listened to a wide variety of opinions as I walk through Hudson. And in listening to the people, I understand that there are some concerns about velocity broadband. I think some of them I share, and I think it's worth looking at. And those concerns are that velocity broadband currently is slowly paying down its debt. So financially, it's not an overwhelming burden to the community. But when the time comes for some of these high-tech equipment items to be replaced, I don't know that that is going to be worked into the capital plan in a way that's sustainable. I think we should look at options to potentially move velocity broadband out to a public or private entity who could better sustain the technology, the capital, and the skills needed over time to keep it a best in class solution for the community. But I think it deserves looking into. Thank you.
Great question. Velocity broadband has been a really important economic development tool in Hudson. It's the reason that many businesses have come and made their headquarters here. And these businesses bring in income taxes. Income taxes are what really pays for everything that the citizens enjoy. I think that's really important because, excuse me, when you look at the private sector, they were not willing to put forward this service and to invest in that infrastructure needed for fiber. And so the city looked at our finances, we decided to reinvest in ourselves, and that's how Velocity Broadband was born. I think that we've seen so many benefits from it. I think that when we talk about internet, a lot of times there is a disparity between is internet a utility or is it not? And I don't want to get into that because a lot of people have varying opinions on whether or not it should be municipally owned or it should be owned by the private sector. And I think that should we ever be faced with that question, we can evaluate it then, but looking at it right now, it is a successful business for Hudson. Yes, Velocity is a business in and of itself, but it's also helped bring businesses to Hudson, and it's been something that has really attracted and kept all of these companies here over the years.
Thank you, Nicole. Other questions from the audience? Yes, George.
Hi, I'm George Snyder. I think the elephant in the room right now is the mayor's appearance last week before the school board, which the Akron Beacon Journal on Sunday called grandstanding. My question to each of you is, do you think, number one, were the mayor's remarks appropriate? And number two, what should the role of the mayor be, given that the charter makes this a largely ceremonial position?
Thank you for your question, George. So I am not in support of the mayor's statement last week. I did make comments last night at City Council. I do think an apology to the school district, our Board of Education, and the parents and students of the district is appropriate. And I hope he would consider doing that. Additionally, I think that before making a statement such as that, it's important to have all the facts. And it seems like this could have been easily resolved without such a public display. And it seems to me that it was based on Brian Wilch's comments. So my thoughts are that, well, first of all, I want to reiterate that council did not vote and authorize to allow the mayor to make those comments. So those were not the views of our city council. And per our charter, the mayor is primarily ceremonial in their role. And I think that it's important for us to remember that unless authorized to do so by council, the mayor cannot act in such a way. And so I feel like he acted out of the purview of his office personally, looking at the comments that were made.
So I first want to say that I am very interested and concerned with the material that was brought up. And I think that that is essentially the more important question. Now, when we look at the actions of the mayor, I think it could have been handled differently. But in looking at all the things that are happening in our community and around our nation, I think that at this point, what I don't want to do is start piling on. And what I would like to do is start looking at the forgiveness of people, no matter what party they're aligned to. I think appropriate behavior is appropriate. And I think that we need to hold them accountable, in a professional way. But at the same time, I don't think we need to put more logs on the fire. I think that forgiveness is really the way to go forward. So whether we agree or not with him, I think further accelerating it, further exacerbating it, isn't the way that Hudson wants to go forward. So what I'm for here is to be professional, to offer that mature leadership and really to, in our actions, present ourselves as professionals that are bringing us together as a community. So I hope that answers your question appropriately. Thank you, George.
Other questions from those in attendance in the room? Mimi, did you have a question?
My name is Mimi Becker. There are two things that have arisen as a result of this morning's questions that concern me. One of which that I'd like you to both comment on has to do with what you perceive as the differences between a city manager run service delivery versus a strong mayor system of governance. And within that context, how would you approach the solution of the challenges that are posed by the recent signature of the governor of Illinois, who has signed the bill that will close Prairie State Power, which is 42% of our coal power, our electrical power, coal generated, by at least 2045, and it's probably going to be closer to 2035 under the current system of governance that we have.
So thank you for the question. I mean, it is quite a large question. I'll address the first part in that I think professionally managed staff is important at the municipal level. I think that there should be less politics and wrangling at a municipal government. And I think that our council, accompanied by a professional city manager who is accountable to the council, is a good way of moving forward. Now, to the Hudson Public Power side and the Prairie State Energy Supply, I don't think there are easy answers to it. And I think that one way that we can all contribute to that, and I know that this is maybe a small example, but as individuals, the way we consume affects the way that our city consumes. Now, when I talk about limited government, I like to see things like, as individuals, we can all contribute to our own energy neutrality, so to speak. There's opportunities at home to reduce consumption, but also that you could engage in some sort of solar complement to your house. There are a lot of options for individuals, and I think that it's important to empower those people. Currently, I know the city caps residential solar development or solar creation to about 10 kilowatt hours. I don't know that that is appropriate. I think we should either raise it or remove that limitation for residential solar. And I say that because it's up to us as individuals. Now, the council can facilitate, and to your longer term question of Hudson Public Power, I think there's a lot of planning and a lot of options that need to be looked into, but I don't think right now we have the answers.
Thank you for your question. So currently, as you stated, we do have city manager, and in our form of government, the legislative body holds all of the power. And as I stated before, the mayor is mostly ceremonial in nature. So as opposed to a strong mayor form of government where the mayor would then have budgetary and legislative authority, as he does not, it will be up to council to make a decision based on, obviously, as the events unfold and we learn more about the Prairie State Energy Campus is closing, imminent closing out of Illinois, we will need to work with our professional city staff to come up with a resolution. At this point, I think that what we need to do is figure out a way for us to mitigate the problem. And one of the problems is the debt that we will continue to own on Prairie State even after its closure. We need to look at that. We also need to look to make sure that there is no disruption in service to our Hudson Public Power customers. And those are two of the things that council will need to address in the coming years. So as a council, I think that we need to work with our professional staff to make sure those two things are addressed first and foremost. Then we will also need to address the power that we will not be receiving from Prairie State, which is a little over 40%. We will need to replace that in our power portfolio. So there's a lot that we need to look at in the coming years. And I think that it's going to be really important that we take action sooner than later. So I'm interested to see how council moves forward in the coming months, and I look forward to being part of that solution.
Thank you. I think we have a couple of questions coming in from chat.
A question from Don Reed. Hudson's Law on Campaign Finance, adopted in 2008 and reaffirmed in August of 2021, is designed to prevent corruption and promote ethics and integrity in government. It prohibits accepting campaign contributions in excess of $100 per person or group. Do you intend to follow this law?
I do, and I currently am following the law.
Yes, I am following those guidelines, though I do believe there's probably an opportunity to revisit them. And while we have them, yes, we follow them. But I think one thing I experienced that highlighted maybe the outdated nature of the $100 limit was that there were folks that wanted to give things in kind. And in being fair, I couldn't accept sometimes, even like photos professionally done, because it was about $500 at a minimum just to have a photo session, if we're being honest in the value of the things that we're accepting. So I think it needs to be revisited, but at this time, I am following those guidelines. Thank you.
What is each of your stands in supporting diversity and inclusion training and behaviors for city council members and city staff?
So I think it's a very interesting question, and many people define diversity, equity, and inclusion in different ways. So first, I'll say that I believe all people are created equal, and I believe that all people should be treated with dignity and respect. I think that Hudson is a great community, and that most of the people, if not an overwhelming majority of the people in Hudson, would agree that racism and discrimination is an evil in society and should not be promoted nor promulgated. Now, I've also seen areas divided violently by race and religion. And I've seen governments try to take an active role in telling people how to think. And in that experience, I have not seen it work out well. So while I would not support the city funding how to think training or activities, I do believe that as public officials, we own our behavior and we set an example for the community. And while it's something I would never tolerate, it's not something I'm going to make people think. I don't think that's a winning strategy. And honestly, I've not seen it work out well.
Great question. If you look at what a lot of Fortune 500 companies are doing right now, they are prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And I think that we need to make a distinction that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not critical race theory. And as you look at the headway that these companies are making with these initiatives, what it does is it just makes all employees feel welcomed and feel like they belong. And I think that as a municipality, as city employees, council, we are city employees as well as public officials. I think that we could all benefit from any initiative which opens our minds to new people, new experiences, different ways of life. I don't think that participating in any diversity, equity, or inclusion initiatives would necessarily force you to think a certain way, but it might open your mind up and help you to see or relate to something that you weren't able to before. And a lot of times people may do this on their own, and people may teach this in their home, or they may prioritize learning about people who are different than them. But what it really comes down to is just remembering that at the end of the day, we're all humans.
James has a question.
quite simply, how do you, what's your definition of a good city council member, or what makes a good city council member?
Question, James. I think that a good city council member listens to the residents when they have concerns. They prioritize each of those concerns, no matter how small they are. Whether it is something as simple as asking city staff to evaluate the safety of a sledding hill, or it is as important as looking at the portfolio of Hudson Public Power and the impending closure of one of those sources of power. I think every single thing that we're faced with as council members is important. And I think that the important thing for us to remember is treating our residents with that respect, that when they come to us with a concern or a need, we are there to help them and we are there to listen. And that is something that I believe I have done every step of the way, and I'm proud of that. Additionally, I think that being able to work with your colleagues on council and make headway with them on various issues that you might not otherwise have in common is important. I think that doing your homework, doing research on things, being well read on the agenda is important. And I would really like to be able to continue doing that for you.
Yeah, I think it's a great question as well, James. First and foremost, I think as a representative, being able to listen to, hear, appreciate the perspectives of the broad-based community, and also being able to put those in context of what the broad community is looking for. So that when you act and all that you do, you're representing the interests of the residents and driving us forward in a way that is positive. Now, I think what helps a candidate or an elected official do that is also the skills and experience that they bring with them. You only have that Rolodex of what you've been through to leverage to make those decisions once you've collected the information. And having those professional skills, as I've emphasized earlier, both with the city staff as well as the elected officials, gives us better solutions and potentially more options. Now, I guess in the end, as well, you need to be able to have the interpersonal skills to conquer what we seem to see more frequently these days, which is political divisiveness. So I think sticking to the facts, using good critical thinking and decision-making to work with your colleagues in a professional way to develop best solutions for the community that aren't necessarily in your personal interest, but represent the first thing that I said, which was being able to listen to the community and put all that information into an assessment of what is best for the community, what is in the interests of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yes.
Hi, I'm Mike Donovan. There was some talk earlier about phase 2, and I just wanted to revisit. There's some discussion as to the process, and I wondered how you would balance the developer's desire for an expedited process with the desire of the public to make sure that everybody's heard. Thank you.
No, Mike, I think it's a great question, and it highlights a challenge that we have right now. We have a developer that wants to move quickly, and we have people who feel like they hadn't been listened to previously and they want to be heard. I believe that both are parts of our community. There's a business element and there's a residential element in our community. It needs to be balanced. But at this time, I would say I'm going to put the emphasis on listening to the residents and making sure that whatever is proposed in its initial form and in its final detailed form represents that broad base of support. So I favor wholly ensuring that we're getting the feedback and creating the opportunity and time for the people to give us feedback. And I'm not talking, there are some people that are very interested and very vocal, but there's a lot of people in the middle that if we don't engage them up front, if we don't provide that time, we could find ourselves in a similar situation where there's a lot of people undersatisfied. So I'll say for us, we need to give it time to listen and evaluate as we go, but it's time for a decision.
Thank you. That's a great question. So as the developers have come forward and presented this plan to us, they've made it clear that Heinen's needs to either renovate or build new because the store as it currently stands is not satisfying the needs of the business. And if anyone here has ever worked with anyone in construction to do anything around your home, such as renovate a bathroom, you know that these things do need to be planned in advance. There are labor and supplies shortages. So when we look at this idea that we need to have an expedited process so that they have an answer, I think that that's partially due to the fact that Heinen's as a business wants to move forward with what's best for them, which would be renovating their store to fit their needs. And I can respect that. I can also acknowledge that for many, this expedited timeline is maybe not ideal. And a lot of us would maybe want to take this a little slower than Fairmount is asking us to. That being said, it's also important for us to try to hear out this plan fully so that we can really give them that that consideration that they deserve by bringing this forward. And I do think that getting citizen input in this timeline is possible. Yes, it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to require us as council members to really get out there and talk to everyone and get their input, but it is possible. So I think that we do need to balance the business needs that are before us as well as the input from the residents.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor this morning? Do we have any questions? Do we have any other questions from chat? No? Okay. Okay, that is going to conclude the Q&A. I apologize. I was looking at my watch and my watch isn't synced with the screen. So thank you, Nicole and Chris. Thank you to everyone in attendance for your attention and your questions. If you have questions that you have and weren't able to ask, either in the room or on chat, please propound them to the candidates directly. They have websites and I'm certain they would be happy to respond to the questions. So again, thank you. And thanks to everyone. Please, let's give them a round of applause. You guys come off the stage.
So there's our cluster will be meeting immediately following our meeting right next door where we had breakfast. And we have our Rotorbuck raffle. Were you in the drawing? Sure. Okay. And the winning ticket for a huge payout of $7 is number 716557. 716557. Mimi, all right. Verify that there's a black one in there. So, all right, okay. Oh. Okay, all right, we'll put it back into the fund. Thank you very much, Mimi. And I know everybody's anxiously waiting. So, how do you get an astronaut baby to fall asleep? You rock it. And we are adjourned.